edition of Dr. Clark's 101, the Living Classroom. Today we're talking Politics 101 with my good friend, Dr. George Amity. And good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Amity, how you doing?
Doing great.
Yes, indeed. And, every 30 days there seems to be more and more and more on the political plate to talk about.
A lot.
This is so absolutely amazing, is it not?
It's amazing. We have stuff at the national, state, local, and international level.
And it looks like
so
it's not
much.
going to slow down.
Not going to slow down.
But let's get right into the mix and talk about the current president, President Trump, and talk about what's taking place with him. But what is the most, in the past 30 days, what has become to be something which is, for all intents and purposes, most unusual to have individuals discuss theoretically war plans in a group chat, and to have a person who was from the media involved, but yet it was said it was a mistake. It was sucked in. What is your perception of that? Because I know all our listeners already know about the processes, what is taking place. What is your perception? Yes, sir.
Well, that you have people who have been selected in positions that normally require someone who's seasoned, who's trained, who understand with the experience, understand the culture. So, in my opinion, you have a lot of people who are in training and they're really not ready for prime time. And so we saw something that if it had occurred under the Obama administration, or if it had occurred under the Biden administration, would have been a much more of a noise about it. But the idea of having war plans in some kind of way inadvertently, it leaked to someone in the press, it's not a good look.
It would be seemed as heresy. And do you think that at this point, this amounts to a level where where some heads should roll in terms of this?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Someone has to be held responsible for that kind of action. And, but so far, no one has been offered up. There's some conversation about other folk who've been offered up.
Well, this Signalgate, some people may be referring to it as, it may have its own intensity, and it may begin to grow, because the more you look into it, we haven't seen all of the transcripts, and it's my view, and the transcripts were withheld by the columnists, saying that, hey, look, the news reporter said, I'm holding the transcripts because I thought that he believed it to be sensitive to America, to the security of those individuals who were involved. But now to support his own, to support himself, he may have to reveal the rest of the transcripts, and I think that perhaps may indeed make this administration somewhat vulnerable.
And also, in addition to Signalgate, we have Tulsi Gabbard, who have used her own personal emails, has shared information with the Russians, and saying, well, no, that had nothing to do with the government. That was my personal email. How do you separate your personal email with your having wearing the head of the Central Intelligence Agency? So once again, my read on it is that you have people in there who haven't been trained, and really, as we saw in the hearings, they're learning on the job, or they don't understand the job as we speak.
Well, you're being very delicate. I believe that we live now in a period of incompetence, and it is demonstrated incompetence. Sometimes individuals prefer loyalty over competence. And so, if that's the case, if the quest is to have loyalty over competence, then you're making the entire country vulnerable on all levels.
Absolutely.
Now, in conjunction with that, we see all of these mass firings with the federal government, and with these mass firings which are taking place, and we're saying, and the current administration is stating that, hey, this is where we've seen the peak of it, but we're going to see a few more. When I say a few more, several thousand more 20 to 40,000 more, and perhaps at that point it would level off. Uh, What do you make of this chainsaw approach to mass firing across the board in government, whether it may be the FBI, the CIA, whether it may be Health and Human Services, whatever department it may be? Yes, sir.
Well, the chainsaw approach is not consistent with the reality of politics and the reality of government. We know that change, for the most part, is incremental. And even though it may sound good that government should be reduced, money should be saved, programs can be cut, what you don't hear about and what you're hearing about is the fact of the fallout and the backlash from people who are being cut, from programs that are being cut, jobs, and these people are being cut with the chainsaw approach, which means it includes any and everybody, not just Democrats, not just people from blue states, but people from all over. So the problem with cuts has always been, even for those who advocate certain reductions and cuts, who gets cut? Who? What are the reductions? And people are finding out that, and the whole idea, I don't want my job cut. I don't want my benefit lost. We see the backlash with respect to for the public hearings, where in both red states and blue states, there's an outcry among the citizens who are feeling the effects of this chainsaw approach.
Well, Dr. Amity, many of these individuals in the federal government who are being cut, now I know anecdotally, but my experience with federal government employees, they're highly, especially in the Beltway, they're highly trained, highly educated. And so you're looking at individuals now who are losing their jobs with huge mortgages,
Absolutely.
families,
Absolutely.
orthodontics,
Uh,
expenses.
and the
yes.
same thing can be said
Yeah.
about the effects of the tariff policy in terms of both the people who voted, the farmers who actually supported this president, and it seems same thing can be said about folks' 401ks and the effect that this radical approach is having on the economy as a whole, because these are people contributing to the U.S. economy. And so what we're beginning to see is the backlash and the outcry about among people with, and of course the person who have symbolized this with the chainsaw is Elon Musk, and he has been a perfect a target for those opposing this. And we saw with the Supreme Court election that Musk put all the money behind the
In Wisconsin, yes.
yeah, in Wisconsin, and still lost. So so far, the Trump administration moves have resulted in a decline in support and decline in popularity for the president.
Well, we know that the party in government tends to, in off-cycle elections, tend to lose. When I say lose, they tends to be, they take an impact in the legislative impact on and getting individuals elected. But recognizing this, in this particular case, as we move toward the off-cycle elections, we may soon discover that it may very well be a snowball effect. And I know that's what the Democrats and independents many Democrats and independents are looking forward to. Yes.
Yes, well, you're correct. Usually the mid-year, off-year election after the presidential election result in losses for the party that's in power. And with the kind of things we're seeing now, and of course we see some signs of that in the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, but also in the Florida House of Representatives seats, where the Democratic candidates, even though they didn't win the election, they raised boatloads of money and kind of showed up pretty well in what ruby red districts. So it will possibly have an effect in the midterm elections on the House and the Senate uh, in 26.
So, we're looking at this, and I just want you to just for all intents and purposes, just give us your general, and I want to discuss this, your general picture of the federal government as it stands right now. How are you viewing the U.S. federal government, and from internally as a professor, and when you look at the federal government, just the leadership in the federal government coming out of the White House?
Well, the federal government is on shaky grounds because this president has declared he wants devolution.
Yes.
He wants to return, say, for example, with the Department of Education. He wants the Department of Education, the monies that the federal government, he wants to dismantle the Department of Education. And he wants to return all of those powers to the state. And he wants to cut, I think this is the beginning of cuts to federal agencies, that his goal is to cut more federal positions and to reduce budgets in areas that he initially said were off limits. We see now that Social Security is being looked at. We see that Medicaid and Medicare is being looked at. So this president has an agenda to cut the federal government, and this has had a devastating effect on not only federal employees, but the voters from who benefit from those federal agencies. It's not like he's set up some type of transition plan or a slow walk. Chainsaw approach. That has been the approach. And so right now, everyone who's in the federal government, anyone who benefits from federal programs, have to be pretty nervous about what's going on. And there's a great deal of uncertainty. We see it also, and then also in terms of the tariffs, in terms of its effect on the confidence in the stock market. So this is the agenda, the priority for President Trump is the priority of returning manufacturing to the United States.
Well, the days of manufacturing are over.
Yeah, well, we're in a global
Yes.
economy, and even the ones that the companies that are here, if you're going to put tariffs on automobiles, all of the parts come from other places. I mean, it goes against
It's 30% of the parts.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It goes against the economic principle of economic advantages and specialization. I don't know who's advising him, but they don't seem, and to get the results he wants, it's not only going to cause tremendous inflation, but it's not going to happen possibly in my lifetime for this to happen. So I'm not clear on what he's trying to accomplish, other than the fact of possibly making sure that he's able to handpick the private sector beneficiaries from this new economy.
And to hurt them, and it's hurting America, and also and reducing our relationship with our allies, global allies. But then
it used to be allies.
Yeah, it used to be allies precisely, and now we look at what's taking place in terms of the border. In terms of the border, we have the northern border and the southern border, and with this mass deportation of what's perceived to be illegal aliens, who are illegal citizens, individuals who are here declared illegal, who are parts of gangs without the quote unquote those magic words, due process.
Exactly. So the undocumented
Yes, undocumented.
immigrants
That's the proper.
and using the idea of gangs, and they've found so far some of the people had no affiliation with gangs, and also using it politically to penalize students on visas and others who've been engaged in political activities that are counter to what Trump stands for, whether it's
Their free speech.
yeah, their free speech. And so it seems as though enough has not been done in the courts, and the courts are a little slow. One thing about these executive orders that they stay in force until you have a decision.
Until they've been challenged
and
in
it
the
seems
court.
as though many more issues have to be decided by the Supreme Court. But in terms of our on our northern border, there's hostility towards Canada. On our southern border, there's hostility towards Mexico, and we kind of soften our position with respect to the support of Ukraine, and pretty outright said we want to take Greenland from Denmark. So just like
Excuse me, and also have Ukraine indentured to America forever.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
So clearly, he is creating not just wreaking chaos in the domestic front, but to complement that on the international front. But we know that this president is one who believes my way or the highway.
Well, it looks as though instead of building a very strong America, you are building an America that is actually going to be weakened and vulnerable to attack.
Exactly.
With no allies and no friends.
Exactly.
And when you already see where Russia and China have formed agreements, they've had long-time agreements for one another since World War II.
Absolutely.
And so what happens is that with Russia, China, you're looking at 1,400,000,000 people, another 400 million people. My goodness, where will America be? Where will America stand? And with the Europeans, the Western Europeans looking in a completely different direction, preparing themselves to ally themselves with other groups,
Absolutely.
Perhaps even on their own continent. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, you're right. They no longer feel as though they can count on the United States, who's long time been the primary supporter of NATO and of the European Union. They can't really count on them. And also preparing, just like Canada and just like Mexico, to retaliate with tariffs that may adversely affect their economy. So we don't really know where this is going to go.
And I've got to add something as well. The continent of many of the nations on the continent of Africa, many of them have influence and there's investment from China.
Yes.
and solid and substantial investments. Yes. And so they're not leaning toward this whole Western America.
In fact, they're moving away. Yeah. To a large extent.
And so as a result of all of that, you're going to discover, and then with the weakening of the American political system, the weakening of the American educational system, you're going to find, and also weakening America in terms of individuals who are going into the service, where you only want, as prisoners though, they only want white Anglo-Saxon straight males.
Yeah.
How you going to fight a war like that?
Yeah.
You can even fight an AI war like that, or with drones. It's not going to be winnable.
And then of course we have to look at the hyper expansion of anti-DEI, where you have certain memorials dedicated to Medgar Evers. Denied. I read today Tulane University is getting rid of all of its diversity programs because of the fear of losing federal funding from this administration. So the attack on anything that's alludes to the term Black, African, color is really under attack by this administration.
You're so 100% correct. Even the Enola Gay, remember the Enola Gay, the plane that dropped
That's right.
off the atomic bombs. At
Right.
one point, it was deleted from all of the discussion because it had the word gay in it.
Absolutely.
And they discovered it was a mistake.
It wasn't even gay. It had nothing to do with sexuality.
It's about incompetence.
Yeah, it's
Incompetence.
ignorance.
Yes, and incompetence is a very dangerous thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, if we can turn the conversation to talk about some state and local activities,
Okay.
if that's okay. We lost we had, excuse me, we looked at some of the things which are taking place. We're looking at in Jefferson Parish and a big an election that took place there. We're looking at the referendums,
Absolutely.
the amendments. All four were knocked down, and I know for my purposes in going around the state, I didn't see any support anywhere.
Yeah,
For those
yeah,
amendments,
yeah.
and just talking anecdotally to individuals from cross sectionally, yes, sir.
Well, we know those elections like that are set up in such a way to do a sneak, because the idea is there's a low turnout, no one is really paying attention, and the drive to get your support out to the polls usually means that those, even no matter how undesirable the referenda are, that you're able to get your sneak. But this time it backfired, and I think it has to do with uh, assumptions about people not paying attention. You can't really underestimate it sometimes. But folk may not participate because they choose to participate, not to participate. But oftentimes they're tuned in. So you put for referendum, barely explain what they're about, and it led to resounding defeat of those. And of course, it seems as though the governor took it personal. That as though the people need to be more educated to the level that we're at. That's not a good thing to say. You cannot assume that people were in favor of this. And he also said, of course, his favorite thing, and that it was the left, it was the liberals, but it was people from both sides of the aisle who voted against these referendums. So this is really a major black eye for this governor, who was, elected overwhelmingly and had support throughout the state of Louisiana, but in this particular case, was not able to properly get these referenda that he wanted passed.
And I would add that liberalism is not alive in Louisiana, in the black or white community.
That's right.
Liberalism is defined somewhat differently in the state of Louisiana. Than we can't find liberals in terms of the same way you would define liberals in California or in Northern California or Hawaii or places such as that. It's a different set of type of liberals that one
Right.
may have.
And of course, Tip O'Neill used the expression that all elections are local, but at the end of the day, we're living in an era of the nationalization of politics. And so just to mimic and repeat and support all of the policies of this president is not going to always work. And I think that's what the governor is a victim to, trying to sound too much like Donald Trump. And right now, Donald Trump's stock seems to be in decline with not only Democrats, but independents and some Republicans.
I think that's reflected also in the election that we saw the other night and in Wisconsin, is it not?
Absolutely.
With the highest amount of money in the history of American politics being spent for a judgeship. Well, it was an important judgeship, Supreme Court judgeship in the state of Wisconsin, and the quote unquote liberal candidate, liberal Democrat candidate, defeated the conservative Republican candidate. Yes.
Yeah, that's because Elon Musk name was associated with that election, and his. If you think Trump's stock is in decline, he's one of the reasons why President Trump's stock has declined, and so that was a clear referendum, not just on Donald Trump and conservatives in Wisconsin, but more so on the involvement of our oligarchy,
Yeah.
oligarch uh, Elon Musk, and his involvement in the U.S. politics.
And it left a bad distaste with Wisconsin's.
Absolutely.
And for all intents, for all people of all great understandings, that Wisconsin is a different sort of state where good government really means good government. It doesn't have a high level of tolerance as you may find in states like Louisiana and other places, or even New Jersey. Yes.
And I think the people who also may have supported cutting jobs, usually when there's reductions in force with the federal government, there's some logic by which cuts are made. Even if there's not a return on the dollar or there are evaluations and there's a clear demonstration that people are not doing their jobs, but just the chainsaw approach just seemed cruel, very cruel. And I think that didn't help at all.
And that tends to be antithetical to the American experience, I would think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so we find now that that this is indeed, I don't want to say this is indeed an environment where the National Republican Party may very well be nervous.
Oh yeah. Well, I think you see a few more
Yeah.
Republicans coming out, even conservatives, and challenging some of the things that are going on. With this Signal Gate, with the backlash at the town hall meetings and the like that's going on, I think that more Republicans are going to have to speak up.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned town hall meetings, and there was reports out that they were asking many of the Republican congresspeople not to go to not to hold in-face town hall meetings,
Right.
because they were believing that professional protesters will be
Exactly.
there. But even though they're not professional protesters, those are individuals who have genuine concerns.
So it's as though they're saying the answer is to not meet with your people, not and that's not the way that's supposed to work.
Uh, so in the time that we have remaining, we have about 2 minutes or so remaining. Um, what's your take on the next 30 days in American politics?
Well, I'm going to go local.
Oh yes. That's real, because we have some things going on.
We have an interesting mayoral race that is kicked off, and an interesting sheriff race. On the sheriff race, we see former Judge Julian Parker has put his name in the hat, along with Michelle Woodfork and Edwin Shorty and Susan Hudson. So that's going to be a very interesting race. Of course, Woodfork has the name identification. Hudson is the incumbent, and Shorty is an elected official who has good support. So that's going to be an interesting. And then, of course, the mayoral race is kicked off, where you have Councilman Oliver Thomas, you have Helena Moreno, and you have former Judge Arthur Hunter. So that's going to be an interesting race as well.
And the mayor is the mayoral race in New Orleans is very it's a powerful position.
A very powerful position, and I expect that with those candidates in the race, we can expect large turnouts. The issue is about who will be able to make the runoff and who will be able to get the voters out on their behalf, and then the runoff will be another race.
Where can our listeners locate you?
I'm at Southern University at New Orleans, GAMEDEE at suno.edu, and 504-286-5392. George Amity.
Yes, sir. Professor George Amity. And again, this is Dr. Clark's 101, the Living Classroom. We're talking Politics 101 with Professor George Amity. And you can follow me on all platforms of social media. And as always, it's been a pleasure.